starts this fantastic parsha. It's action-packed, and nothing like Shabbat was created to learn Torah, to toil in Torah. So something extra for the Shabbat table, always, as we try every single week to give over some tidbits to really, let's say, spice up the Sabbath in of itself. Now, very interesting. We see that the opening scene of this Sedra, Vayera, it sees Avram Avinu braving the pains of his Brit Milah. We learned at the end of Parshat Lech Lecha, he had the Brit Milah, and he was waiting outside of his tent and anticipating at the time potential guests he could welcome. And at that stage in time, Hashem actually will come to visit Avram and to help heal Avram Avinu. And what happens at the end? He doesn't need to run around looking for the guests. The guests will actually come to him. 3 men from the distance. And Avram Avinu is going to usher them into his tent, give them a very, very delicious, lavish meal that we learn about, cooked for them. And as they say, the rest will become history. Now, the midah, the characteristic specifically associated with Avram Avinu, is that of kindness, chesed, as we say, as manifest in acts of kindness like this. Now, in fact, there's a great rabbi, I think, from America, Rabbi Pam. He notes that Avram Avinu, did not just give his guests a small, let's say, meal in of itself or a snack, but rather a full meal. And more, he gave each of the 3 men 1 whole cow each. I think Rashi is going to expound on that in chapter 18, verse number 7, quoting various different, let's say, Gemorot, also various different Talmud parts, as well as bread and so on and so forth. But now Avram himself was certainly not one to indulge in such a meal when alone without any guests. But when dealing with guests, he defined his actions by his view of their wants, their needs, as opposed to what he wanted, and just shows the greatness of true. This is actually a real true chesed, both the personal want to give and the giving in accordance with seeing what's best for the receiver. Now, let's look at this idea further. I actually saw this brilliant idea from Rabbi Daniel Fine from the United Kingdom. This great Rabbi Dessler, he defines zechut avot, the merits of fathers, as midot, characteristics, which are imbued in us, because they were imbued in our forefathers, our avot. One can see this in our days. For example, arguably, Avram Avinu's, his 2 most famous achievements, obviously, if we don't include the whole sugya of the Akedah, was performing the Brit Milah and this kindness. Now, similarly, nowadays, just all walks of life, we've got religious, or not yet religious, as one rabbi would actually say, they are involved in chesed and tend to keep 2 Brit Milah, respectively, circumcision, as we translate. One can have, let's say, just hypothetically, an extremely anti-religious or maybe a secular Jew who is not particularly fond of any mitzvot, yet he will give his baby boy a Brit Milah and will donate significant, well over the average sums of money to charity, various different charitable organizations. Now, why is that so? For that is in itself zechut avot. It's our second nature. Let's just say, as an aside, the rabbi once heard a story about a Jewish man who noticed that, let's say, his children had been playing the same game of Monopoly for many, many days. And then he kindly reminded them that the aim of the game is to make a player go bankrupt. And thus the number of players is supposed to decline as the game goes on. They replied by informing them that they had set up a system when one player goes bankrupt, the other players get together and open a gemach, a free loan fund, and lend the player the money so that he can get back into the game. In what way can we work on our chesed? You see over there, there's phenomenal chesed achievement of the people that play the game. Now, in all mitzvot and one's world in general, there are 2 components, the act and the personality. What I do and who I am. For convenience purposes, let's name the act as ma'aseh and the personality aspect as something called dat, understanding. For example, the act of, let's say, for the Arbat Minim that we have on Sukkot would be obviously shaking a lulav, but its effect is to affect and improve an aspect of oneself and personality. Naturally, the Arbat Minim is a lulav, etrog, hadassim, and aravot. Now, the point over here to grasp here is that though it's true that the way to perfect one's personality is via doing various different mitzvot. It is the da'at part that is more important than the ma'aseh aspect at the end of the day. Now, for example, and let's say, for example, an ape putting on tefillin will not be chesed, or won't be classed as a good act over here, for it does not have the personality, the da'at, which goes with that act to be affected. Now, consequently, the few mitzvot, commandments that are more or less purely in the realm of da'at, for example, what we are saying over here, e.g., for example, ahabat and yirat Hashem, the love of Hashem, and the fear of Hashem at the same time, and emunah, with regards to faith, are constant mitzvot and not confined to a particular time of the day or year, indicating their primacy. As we obviously, I think we can actually learn these points from the Chovat or Levavot book very excellently and very much strongly recommend to learn. Now, there's other examples to this also we could state over. Now, the Tosafot in Masechet Kedushin in page, I think it's 31 Aleph, we actually learned about this, I think, a few years back in our Daf Yomi series. The Tosafot explains the reason for, let's say, the rule that one gets more reward for doing a mitzvah that they were commanded or obligated to do, a gadol ha-mitzuvah ve'oseh, that's the terminology, by saying that someone who is commanded will worry more about that mitzvah, performing that mitzvah, i.e. that the worry itself and thus the sign of caring about the mitzvah is a primary facet of it. Moreover, it is the da'at aspect which will precede the doing of the action. Now, one, let's say, for example, mentally decides to do any given action before physically carrying it out, and dictate which action will be done and how. Thus, if the da'at aspect is spiritually damaged, then this will reflect itself in the performance of less mitzvot. Whilst if one mitzvah is damaged, this will not necessarily cause a major impact upon, let's say, the future commandments or mitzvot the person does. But the question can be posed over here: how is this relevant to this specific conversation with regards to chesed, kindness? Now, let's introduce this via a question. Now, I think the Mishnah in Masechet Avot, in Mishnah Avot, in chapter 5, verse 21, lists the traits of Abraham Avinu, as good eye, humble spirit, and meek soul. That's how it's, let's say, encapsulated. Now, the question can be asked, why isn't the chesed mentioned if that's Avram's main midah, his characteristics? And the answer is that there are two aspects to this kindness. As with any other mitzvah, as discussed above, an act of chesed and a personality of chesed, i.e. doing an act of giving versus being a giving person. The Mishnah is listing those aspects of Abraham which caused his chesed, but not merely acts of chesed, but rather his entire character as a man of being and living chesed. These two things have been termed chesed and ahavat chesed. Let's just say that's the chesed, the kindness, and the loving of the kindness. Chesed kindness represents the act of giving, whilst ahavat chesed represents having a personality that is imbued with kindness, and as a consequence, one naturally loves to give to others. Now, you can say thus, a major way of working on our chesed is via the quality of an acts of chesed, kindness that we do. To do them with feeling and meaning, to greet someone with genuine warmth, or to notice that one is doing a mitzvah of chesed when giving someone a lift somewhere, for example, they could be doing. When giving the phone to a family member who has received a call, and other everyday acts of kindness that go by unnoticed. Now, on that note, just wishing you all a great Shabbat at the moment. Yes, so just amazing ideas within regards to Shabbat every single day. And Shabbat, I think Rav Ovadia Yosef actually brought down in the Yalkut that one of the reasons Shabbat is actually here is for us to learn and study Torah. How important is a mitzvah of Talmud Torah in of itself, to imbue ourselves with mitzvot, share over ideas, look at the Parshat Vayera. That's why one of the mitzvot there is to do actually every single week is Shnai Mikra v'Chat Targum, where we go every single day, we study parts of the Torah, and we do in Targum Unclus with regards to Unclus translation, as we share ideas. And one of the ideas of learning and stating this over when we read the Pesukim inside the Torah is to come up with our own ideas in of itself. And that's why they said, there was a great rabbi that once said that for the Torah itself, there's 70 interpretations to every pasuk, every single idea. That's why the years of a man happens to be 70 years. King David's years were 70, and other great people, because that's like a life cycle over here. These 70 years, as you go on each single year, you get imbued with another idea within regards to the Torah portion. And that's why there's so many different great commentators, different great authors of books over all the years, all over the millennia. Well, actually, you can actually read their perushim, their books, their ideas from all the different walks of different parts of the world. You can read a book of the commentary of Shabbat from great rabbis that maybe came from, let's say, countries like Poland or Hungary or Lithuania, and great rabbis from Iraq like the Ben Ish Chai, and from Tunisia and from Morocco and from Iran that give over different great insights within regards to the Parshat Shavua in of itself. So wishing you all fantastic people out there, wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom. Hope this was good. Make this Shabbat amazing, awesome, bring out ideas, learn Torah, imbue yourselves with many things, and don't forget every single Devar Torah. This is actually the fourth video we're actually recording within regards to Parshat Vayera, because we started this series back in 2022. So every single year we try and bring out a different idea to really energize our Shabbat and so on and so forth. So please, everyone that's tuning in, join the channel, join the community, and wishing you all a fantastic Shabbat and Shabbat Shalom. Thanks very much for watching, and remember, hopefully we can all get Bezrat Hashem 70 different great insights on different Torah portions. So my cue is to go to the synagogue now. It's getting dark out there, so wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom, friends, and take care.